Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's season 2, episode 10. This is Joe's Hot Takes 25. Woo! We're moving through 2026 at a pretty rapid pace. This is awesome. But here we go. Um, wow, today is truly a hot take. I can't think of a more hot take than this. I want to talk about our education, not our education system, our educators. And I'm talking high school, college level, the professors, the teachers that are talking and sharing information with our students. So my question is, and the topic today is, are teachers teaching or indoctrinating? I know it's a hot take. For sure, and it can get people fired up. And this usually ends conversations, right, rather than starting them. But we want to start it. We want to know, what are our teachers doing, and how do we respond to this? How do we feel about this overall? And it's interesting. I did some research because that's what I do. Try to get a little bit of research done and get some information to share. All right. So now, before anybody jumps to conclusions, right, I want to be really clear right up front. This episode is not about attacking teachers. Not at all. Not about going after teachers or professors, but I kind of want to know what we as a society in America think of our teachers and our professors. Now, it's not about calling classrooms propaganda factories. That's not what I'm trying to do. And it's definitely not about pretending education doesn't shape minds, because it does. Education's important. Our teachers are important. Our teachers do it because they want to teach. They certainly don't do it for the money, right? There's not a lot of money in that career. Okay, so, all right. Are teachers teaching students how to think? Or are they quietly telling them what to think? And I'm not talking about all teachers, okay? So, more importantly, where does education end and belief pushing begin? So let's jump into that. So whether teachers should share their personal views or not, that's been debated for decades. I can tell you, as a child, I think I was in about 5th grade, and we had a social studies teacher that came in, and we were talking about federal government and politics, and she referred to the then sitting president was Richard Nixon, and she kept referring to him as Tricky Dicky. Okay, I'm there to learn about social studies. I'm there to learn about the government, to learn about what the presidency is, what does it mean, how do you become president, all of these things. But when you start taking shots at a sitting president like that in a classroom, that's inappropriate, in my opinion. In my opinion, those comments should be held back and teach the facts, teach the history, teach the lesson. Keep your personal stuff out. Now, when you go home, if your parents want to teach that, that's what the parents are for. Okay, so that was just something that happened to me. Now, there are some classrooms that really do operate under strict neutrality, right? They're just neutral. They try not to take sides. But others encourage open discussion. And it depends on the teacher, the subject, the school, the culture, even the community, how these things are going to be presented to our students. I do believe that many educators aim to objectively teach, and they want to teach objectivity because they believe it fosters critical thinking, and I think that's true. I think you do. You have to open up these minds of young people and get them critical thinking. And I push that here on this podcast, get out there and get the facts and be curious. So, but you have to remember that other people are arguing that sharing personal perspectives, that really kind of, some people say that helps the students better understand bias. it can help elevate arguments. It can help maybe even them develop their own opinions. I don't know. See, I come from a time in history where I didn't need an educator to tell me. I just needed to learn the basics. And then as I grew and as I got into the career, into the job market and started a career and raising children and getting involved in local politics and school board issues and things like that, that now all of a sudden were important to me because they were not important to me when I was in high school or even going to college. I didn't care. I just, give me my degree, get me out of here. So a lot of the bias that we see, I think, spread out in some of these schools is that these teachers, these educators are now at a point in their lives where they've graduated college, they've started their own lives, they've started their career, and now they have political ideas or they have historical ideas, or it could be racial, it could be sexual, any of these ideas. And then they feel like, hey, I'm right, and I'm a teacher, so I'm going to teach it. I just don't agree with that. I think that that's really up to, your parents. The parents should be talking about things like that. Okay, so again, I think it crosses a line when an educator starts talking about imposing personal, political, or religious beliefs in a classroom. I just think it's a line of a professional line that gets crossed. So, all right. So let's keep it. Let's definitely keep this focused now. All right, because we can. So, all right. The consensus leans toward neutrality and sensitive topics. Okay, so generally speaking, these educators, what I'm finding, lean towards kind of trying to stay as neutral as possible when talking about politics, religion, social ideology. That way, you're really maintaining a safer, more inclusive, and more objective learning environment. Because I think if you start going one way or the other, you're going to cause problems. And I say that only based on the information that I've found, and we're going to talk about that. It's coming up here towards the end of this podcast. So, so the question that nobody really wants to answer honestly is this. Is that actually what's happening? Is that actually what's happening out there? Are teachers indoctrinating rather than teaching? All right. So teacher indoctrination, okay? That is a phrase that instantly triggers emotion. All right. Depending on who you ask, it's either a made-up talking point or it's a lived experience. For me, it's been a lived experience. I've witnessed firsthand how teachers can influence simply by making comments like tricky dicky, things like that. Okay. So at its core, indoctrination really isn't about teaching facts. It's about how information is presented. It's if I can present it in the right way that you are going to absorb it and I can get you to believe it, then you're going to start following what I have to say. Now I'm starting into an indoctrination rather than just presenting facts, let you decide. Okay. So accusations usually arise when educators are perceived as pushing students toward a specific viewpoint or uncontested issues without encouraging, questioning, debate, or, and this is the big one, alternative perspectives. So this is all research that I've done, and this is the information that I'm getting back, and that's the problem. If you want to put out a point, put out the point, but then you have to open that for questioning, you have to open that for debate, and you have to be willing to listen to alternative perspectives. That's been a big problem in our country lately, listening to alternative perspectives. So, in other words, I guess when students are taught what to believe rather than how to analyze it and believe on their own, that's when you start indoctrinating. So there are some parent advocacy groups out there, and media outlets that have highlighted real world examples that fuel these concerns, right? You've seen it out there. Some teachers have been accused of promoting specific political or social ideologies in the classroom. It happens every day. And on topics like critical race theory, gender identity, just all kinds, or their perspective of American history should be. Rather than teaching the way it's designed to be taught, people like to put in their own information. So, in ways, parents feel, a crossover maybe from education into activism. And this is what I'm finding when I do the research. That information is out there that a lot of these parents are starting to feel like it's crossing over from education to activism to push their points, their political, their agenda with LGBTQ, things like that. All right. So, one widely cited case involved an English teacher who claimed traditional grammar rules, thesis statements, citation practices were rooted in white supremacy and therefore arbitrary. Groups like Parents Defending Education labeled that indoctrination, not instruction. And when would it be okay for an educator to say, well, the basis of the English language, the basis of everything that we're doing is based on books created under white supremacy? Okay, wow, big problem. We can't do that. We have to really open that up. Other examples feel a little more personal. Teachers commenting on students' religious clothing, discussing of immigration, framed through a single lens. This is their lens of what they see about immigration, and they're the teachers, so they lead this discussion, and they aren't always open to other viewpoints. So they don't always acknowledge alternative viewpoints. And that is information that I'm finding when I do research at various websites and just looking and asking questions and getting my own information. So then, of course, there's that TikTok moment, right? So a teacher posted a video claiming, and this is a quote, "I am, in fact, indoctrinating your children." This is what she said. She later clarified that she meant teaching critical thinking and citizenship, but the clip went viral, news outlets ran with it, and a lot of parents felt like it confirmed their fears that they already had, that a teacher is posting that they are, in fact, indoctrinating their children. That's pretty heavy, all right? So supporters argue that what some people might call indoctrination is simply education. On relevant social studies, some people feel that it's okay to talk about all of these things, and I do too. I think it's okay to talk about racism, inequities, gender identity things. It's okay to talk about it, but where do you draw the line on when is it okay to talk about it in a classroom to students who are very impressionable, and when is it okay to say, you know what, these are topics that you need to discuss at home with your family. So, I don't know. There is an uncomfortable truth, right? Intent may not always be malicious, but the impact is what matters. So some of these educators may not really have that deep down intent, like, I'm going to teach these kids how to be liberal, conservative, independent, whatever. I'm going to teach them to accept LGBTQ. I'm going to teach them not to accept LGBTQ. It's really, they may not be malicious in their intents in the beginning, but it still makes a difference. The impact still matters. All right, so let's talk about something here that just drives me nuts, right? So college cost and then the credibility. So we have all of this information out there about these high student debts, forgiving student debt. There's all this political rally around it, and so I just kind of want to zoom out. So we're spending more money than ever on education, right? Especially higher education. Tuition costs continue to skyrocket. So student debt's exploded. It's a problem, right? There's real world examples of colleges and even high schools promoting content that many parents don't even feel is educational at all. All right, and so what are we paying for? Are we paying for our educators to educate, or are we paying these educators and these colleges to indoctrinate? Those are the questions today. Some institutions pressure governments for free education. Others lobby for loan forgiveness. And that raises a fair question. Student loan forgiveness, for what? For what exactly? For institutions that are drifting away from the core of academics? For classrooms that feel more ideological than instructional? Where do you stand on that? Where's your spot? Where do you stand? You either agree or you disagree or you're somewhere in between. It's okay. This is about having a discussion. This is about putting information out there, letting you chew on that information, and then decide, are we seeing indoctrinations or are we seeing actual teaching? And again, it's not always about curriculum. It's about trust. We're trusting these educators. So we're paying all this money, all these tuitions, and what are our students, what are our college students bringing out of that? When they hit the workforce, what are they bringing with them? Are they open-minded, or have they been indoctrinated and pushed to believe a certain way? I think when you look at a lot of these protests that are out there, a lot of these events that are going on, the majority of people that I see when I look at it look like young people, college-age kids. They're very impressionable. They're still learning. They're trying to find their way, and they get pushed. They get driven. They get directed into some of these beliefs, and then they get involved. And I think it's unfortunate for someone to get involved in these type of topics without having proper education and background on the topics or personal experience. So, and I mean, let's not color this a different color. I'm talking about LGBTQ issues, transgender bathroom access, transgender participation in sports. I mean, these aren't abstract debates. They involve privacy, safety, fairness, deeply held beliefs on both sides, okay? On both sides of this, deeply held beliefs. So the question really becomes, is this something that teachers should be teaching? Should teachers be discussing transgender, gender identity, sexual orientation with students? And my question even goes beyond like elementary and high school students, but even at the college level, is this something that our students should be learning about in school, or is this something they should be learning about at home, right? Home versus school. Where do you stand? This is for you. You can probably read between my lines a little bit and kind of figure out where I'm at. But others believe, like I said, that this stuff just really needs to be conversations that belong within families or with your spiritual leaders that you're involved with and things like that. So, and this isn't just a little divide, folks. This is a big, if you turn on the news, you see it all the time. This is a big topic. There's a lot to it. So I wanted to know, what do parents think? So I wanted to go out and see if I could find some research. And I did. I found a Pew Research study. It was from February of 2024. And so it's not that long ago. And according to this February 2024 Pew Research study, Americans were asked whether parents should be able to opt their children out of learning about certain topics if those lessons conflict with their personal beliefs. Okay? Here's what they found. 54% of parents believe parents should be able to opt out of lessons on sexual orientation and gender identity. So a little over half of the people that were polled in this Pew research study, about 54% believe that parents should be able to opt out of that. 34% say the same about racism and racial inequalities or inequities. So 54% think we should have the option to opt out on sexual orientation and gender identity. 34% say we should be able to opt out on racism and racial discussions. Now, the partisan divide, massive, right? I don't care. You turn on any news station, you talk to anybody. If you're talking to someone that is a Democrat or liberal leaning or a Republican or right leaning, you're going to see this. It's not a dip, it's not a valley, it's a canyon. It is a canyon between these two groups. So that's scary. 79% of Republicans support opting out or opt-outs for LGBTQ topics, compared to just 32% of Democrats. So there's your show, right? So on the conservative side, you're seeing that people believe they should be able to opt out of this. It shouldn't be forced down the students' throats. They see it as an indoctrination, where just 32% of more left-leaning Democrats believe they should be able to opt out. But that leaves the majority, right? Over 70% almost, or at 70% of Democrats feel that they should not be able to opt out. They should have to go. Okay, on racism and racial inequities, and this is good. 55% of Republicans support opt-outs compared to 16% of Democrats. So 55% of Republicans believe I should be able to opt my child out of that. Only 16% on the Democratic side feel they should be able to opt their children out of that. Now, if you put those two numbers together, the opt-out is far greater than the opt-in. If you think about it, let's take the LGBTQ discussion. 79% Republicans, 32% of the Democrats. So when you start putting those numbers together, you'll overwhelmingly have more people that want to opt out of this from both sides total than would opt in. So that's kind of telling too. On racism, race and ethnicity, those are kind of another layer that gets added. And similar shares of white and Hispanic adults support. So the groups that we saw in this Pew study of white and Hispanic adults really supported opt-outs on the racial topics. However, we saw in this study, Black and Asian adults were less likely to opt out. Okay, so among the Democrats, Black and Hispanic parents were more supportive of opt-outs than white Democrats, especially on LGBTQ issues. White Democrats were the most likely to opt out entirely. Okay, so these numbers tell us something really important, because remember, we were looking at the Democrat, the more liberal side, and the lower numbers of opt-outs. But here's the thing, this isn't just political. I believe, based on my own knowledge and based on what I've found in research, this is cultural. This is cultural, and it's probably driven more by religion. You tend to see in the Black communities and the Hispanic communities much more church involvement, much more religious involvement. And I think that then becomes deeply personal to these people, and they feel, no, I want to talk to my children about it. I don't want it at school. So, and so that's kind of what I'm gathering from this. It's like an assumption, but you know what happens when you assume, right? Just break the word up. Ass, you, me. Yeah, you got it. But I do believe that religious values definitely play a role here. So family with strong faith traditions often prefer to handle moral and identity-based conversations themselves. They don't want this in the schools. All right. And the same, you see pretty much the same division with economics. It's really, I think a lot of parents, I think the majority of parents, whether you're Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter, whether you're white, whether you're black, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. A lot of parents believe that some of these topics need to be at home and not at school, which kind of rolls back to why do we pay so much for college if they're not even teaching us what we want them to teach our children? Okay. So here's a little area. It's kind of I'm titling this as Student Experiences and the Chilling Effect. All right. So here's where the debate stops being theory or theorized. Students on both sides report the feeling of being silenced. Okay. So we've seen it where, and it's really prevalent in the media, where a student is singled out because of LGBTQ, they're transgender, they're different in some way, and we see that, but we never look at the other side of that. It happens on both sides of this, that feeling of being silenced. So I looked up some information, and I found this on several different websites, and in National Institutes of Health and Westridge Spyglass, Chronicle, CLC.com. So there was a lot of stuff out there about this, but there's a lot of students expressing that they've seen backlash for having different views from what their educators were providing them. So some students who voiced traditional religious beliefs about gender or sexuality reported being labeled as homophobic or transphobic, not by peers alone, but sometimes by faculty, by our teachers. Because of their beliefs, because of how they were raised, they're not in line or in sync with what some of these teachers are putting out there. And those students feel as though they're being pushed aside. Others report being reprimanded for not using preferred pronouns or for using a student's legal name. Okay, so you know where this is, right? This is the student that says, I'm not a he, I'm not a she, I'm a they, and I want you to use my pronouns. Okay, let's roll this back a little bit. We're talking about students in junior high, high school, even college level. This is now these students that really have these beliefs other than, it's really a struggle for them. So I can tell you it's hard for me. If I see a man that's dressed all up like a woman wearing lipstick, I still see a man. That's not me being homophobic. That's not me being against transgenders or LGBTQ. It's me seeing what I see and based on my background and my experience. And I'm a 60-year-old man, so times have changed during my lifetime, and so we're still trying to wrap our minds around some of this stuff. And when I have a friend that I have a friend Jimmy, that I've known for 10 or 15 years, and now Jimmy wants to be called Janie. That's tough. It's tough to wrap your mind around. So everybody's got to understand that. Okay, students who object to school-wide pride initiatives or curricular changes describe social isolation, exclusion, and even bullying. Some of these students are being bullied because they're not jumping on the train with pride initiatives and some of these curriculum changes. So sometimes they're even being told that they're bad people. They're even being told that they're going to go to hell. This is research that I found. You can find it too. Athletes who protested transgender inclusion in girls' sports by refusing podium placements or wearing Save Girls Sports shirts faced accusations of hate speech and bullying. Wow. They are trying to silence those people, but allow clear voices for the other side of that. Okay. Students who raise concerns about fairness or safety have been labeled as bigots or misogynists. That's just not okay, guys. Come on. Um, and political dissent isn't any better. You see it every day. You turn on the news and it's just hate, hate, hate. It's nobody wants to get along anymore. Everybody wants to argue and fight and challenge. I just really struggle with this myself. But some students do report teachers openly mocking conservative viewpoints or labeling them as uneducated, racist, or sexist. And they're doing this in front of a classroom. So this is the other side that we really don't see much of, but it's happening. And some are students, and through some of this research, have described being pressured into participating in political or social discussions that directly are contradictory or contradict their family's values. Wow, with no opt-out. They have no opt-out. So this is what researchers are now calling the chilling effect. And the students just stop speaking. They self-censor themselves. They hide their beliefs. And not because they're wrong, but because they found it safer, right? And they found it safer. And I look at some of these protests and I see like a vehicle driving through and people are attacking a vehicle. They don't even know who's in the vehicle. It's somebody trying to drive down the street. They might have the same beliefs that the protesters have. You don't know, but they're willing to attack the vehicle because that's a sign of opposite of whatever they believe. Like, where did we lose all of this? And is some of this type of behavior that we're seeing, is some of this being fostered, is some of this being indoctrinated to our students through the education system? It's a real question, and there's real controversy on both sides. So what do parents want right now? I don't know. What do they want? I did some checking. And there's some polling out there, and polling from 2023 to 2025 shows that, this is not a surprise, a deeply polarized landscape. A deeply polarized landscape. This is a division. This is a division. There is no gray area. It is a black and white, a strong division. Teachers regularly, So I'm going to tell you this. A state policy network poll found that 66% of parents believe teachers regularly deviate from the curriculum to inject personal beliefs. 66% of parents. This isn't Democrat, this isn't Republican. This is 66% of parents. So the majority of parents believe that the teachers do this, and they're probably not wrong. Among those, 41% had personal opinions that were injected into the classroom they were aware of. 34% said the core material wasn't even fully covered. 32% reported non-approved content being taught. So that means the teachers are taking and doing what they want rather than teaching the curriculum. That's why I say, is this education or is this an indoctrination? I don't know. Let's leave it to you to figure out. 1 in 4 parents reported a direct conflict with a teacher within a single year. 1 out of 4. 25% of parents had a direct conflict with a teacher within that year. At the same time, most parents don't want heavy-handed bans. So they're finding that about 62% oppose lawmakers restricting subjects. 56% oppose school boards doing the same. So most people don't want subjects and curriculum necessarily restricted, but I think that they want teachers to teach the curriculum and not teach their personal beliefs or their personal push their personal values. Most parents still do trust teachers. This is what I'm finding. Most still trust them. Teachers are still highly rated, but what parents want is to not see censorship. That's all. Parents are saying we don't want to see censorship. We want transparency. We want balance, and ultimately accountability if they find that curriculum isn't being followed. Okay, so here we are. Are teachers pushing personal views instead of teaching the curriculum? I think in the course of this uh, uh, information that I've looked up and the research I've done, yes, sometimes. Is there widespread intentional indoctrination? Well, I don't think that the evidence really supports that across the board. Does it happen? Of course it does. But I don't think it's a widespread across the board. Now, even in some of the isolated cases that these can erode trust, divide communities, they can silence students. So teachers have a responsibility to teach and to be professionals and to practice restraint. Teachers must do this. They have to practice restraint and they have to teach unbiasedly. Without bias, they need to teach. And students deserve classrooms where curiosity isn't punished. I'm the biggest proponent of curiosity. Be curious. All right, so on Joe's Hot Takes 25, my goal is simple. It's simple. I want to present information. There's a lot of uncomfortable parts out there, and they're out loud, and we say it out loud sometimes, and it's okay. We need to be able to open up a conversation, listen to both sides, and we need to learn and we need to understand. We can't do this if we rely solely on social media. We cannot do this if we rely solely on the headlines. Guys, don't trust the media. If you don't believe me, just do your own research, right? The media is in it for money. The more controversy, the more money they make, right? They're going to continue to push their agendas through headlines. They're going to push them through social media. So dig deeper. Dig deeper. Look, our children are watching. Our children are watching us. So teach them about hard work. Teach them about fairness. Teach them about kindness. And above all, teach them to think. That's how you build thinkers, not followers. We don't want followers. We have enough of those in this world. We need thinkers. And that curiosity, that research, that getting to know, those thinkers become our leaders, and that's what we need. We need bright leaders in our future. Okay, so that's it. All right, I can drone on for another hour. That's it for this episode. I'm gonna wrap it up. I hope this gets you thinking. I hope that we will be asking more and better questions down the road. So at this point, it's on you. You figure it out. Where do you stand? Are we teaching or are we indoctrinating? I don't know. I know this. I want you all to be well. Please be kind to one another. Always stay curious. And I will see you next time on Joe's Hot Takes 25.